Welcome to another episode of Rawcast AD. I'm your host, Doug. And just kind of want to change things up this week, or this day, because I've been uploading quite frequently. And I got chew pouches in my mouth because I'm a despicable piece of white trash. But I live in central Wisconsin, so it comes with the territory, y'all. This week, I kind of want to talk a little more. Wow, is it a Freudian slip about how this is going to be a boring episode? I sincerely hope not. But with my job at the United States Postal Service as a rural carrier, rural carrier. That's a hard word for me. I slur it. Between chewing and drinking, it's just too much. I'm never going to be a princess. But I've had people make plenty of comments with my job. Well, it can't be that hard. You just drive around all day. Ooh. You ever work a job where nobody understands until they actually do the job themselves? As I've said before, I'm a notorious job hopper. In high school, I cleaned motel rooms, I worked at Subway, and I worked in the high school library. Right after high school, I worked for a restaurant. I got hired as a bartender, tried to angle for a banquet server, and ended up waiting tables instead. Quite the turn of events. It was fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. I loved making $2.33 an hour and finding out why the wealthy in my town were wealthy. Tipping me 25 cents on a $25 ticket. How kind of you. You wonderful people, you. No wonder why the most generous people are often the poor. Just saying. But I've worked enough jobs, it's hard to remember after that. I know I worked for a machining or a manufacturing company on and off for about 7 years, so that kind of blurs the lines on my previous jobs. But I do know that I worked at UPS for 5 years. Part of that was served as a union steward for the Teamsters local. That part I'll keep off the books. But I mean, I was also the assistant manager of a dollar store. I was a cook at Pizza Hut. I was a cell phone salesman at Verizon. I sold subprime mortgages at One Main Financial very briefly. I worked as an accounting assistant. I was the night manager at a grocery store. I was a lift operator at a ski hill, which wasn't too bad in itself. But out of all those jobs, the two that I love, hate, slash the most, the slash was in the wrong part. I'm sure you caught that. Good for you. Kudos to you, listener. Kudos. The most underappreciated job I had was working as a cook at Pizza Hut. Minimum wage, pumping out crappy food for fat asses across the land. And then the post office. Now, the post office situation is that basically since 2012, there was a $7 an hour pay cut for new hires. And that's kind of a permanent situation. Meaning that I get paid $7 an hour less for my job than somebody who got hired before 2012. It is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. But if you're doing the same job, how are you going to pay somebody $7 an hour less per hour? It gets frustrating. And since the majority of the people that I talk to don't understand what it's like to work for the post office as a rural mail carrier, I just want to share a few things as to what I've experienced in my 2.5 years working there. Due to no fault of my own, honest to science's truth on that one, I've almost been hit in head-on collisions and T-boned by dump trucks, garbage trucks, teenagers texting, and whatever you can think of. I have almost been hit while delivering the mail multiple times, various situations, various scenarios, various people, various vehicles. I have gone above and beyond for some residents. For example, I have had one resident call and ask for my name. They called my local post office to ask my name so they could properly address the thank you card they left me for the service I provided over the previous year. But their very next door neighbor, who abuses the Amazon system and gets dozens of parcels every week, I was setting their parcels on the front porch, but that wasn't close enough. Apparently, they had gotten one of those Nest doorbells, or the Rings, I should say, the Ring doorbell that has the camera. And I was setting the parcels down on the front porch 10 feet away from their camera. So they called and filed a complaint because they want to have me on camera. I'm a short, stocky, overweight dude from central Wisconsin who doesn't get enough sun, but have a reverse trucker tan. During the holiday season, if you are willing to call and complain that I set your Amazon parcel down on your front porch, 10 feet away from where you would like it to be, go fuck yourself. Especially when your next door neighbor's calling to ask what my name is so they can properly sign a thank you card for my service. I'm not expecting a multitude of thanks, gifts, bribes, well wishes, none of that shit. But I'll be damned if I'm going to get an official complaint on my record, because even though I bent over backwards, it wasn't far enough for you to throw a tablecloth over me and use me for a tea party. Motherfuckers. Another one is somebody moving out of a house and not letting anybody know. So you deliver their mail the day after they move out, and then you get a nastygram because they don't live here no more. And I'm not even trying to downplay that or dumb it up. I have legitimately and literally had people write on mail saying they don't live here no more. And this is central Wisconsin, not southern Georgia. I even had one person call and complain because they moved from one route in my office to another. We caught the particular parcel. It was supposed to be a forward. So we did the forward in our own office, and I delivered it to the correct forwarded address the same day. But the recipient of said parcel decided to call not my post office, but the 800 number to the United States Postal Service to file an electronic complaint. So I have red ink in my permanent file because somebody forgot to put their new address on an order that I delivered correctly. By all rights, we could have processed that forward through the upper echelons of the post office, delaying the parcel delivery by a day or two. But we took it upon ourselves to do the right thing and deliver this parcel in a timely manner. And by doing so, I got a complaint because this person filed said complaint because they didn't know if they used their forwarded address. So that's red ink in my file because of their mistake. Now, to go from there, this mail carrier job of just driving around all day, I have been driving along and had my brake pads disintegrate. So that by the end of a route, sorry, I got a text message. By the end of a route, I've had to head straight to an auto parts store, to not only buy brake pads, but new rotors because I mangled the rotors carrying out the duties of my job. Because when you have your own set route, even if you have to bank out of there an hour early, bail it out 1 hour early. By the post office definition, you don't get paid for that day unless you burn annual leave or sick time. So if you get 90% of the way through a route and your car breaks down and somebody has to come bail you out, you better use vacation because that 90% of a day doesn't count. I've also had it where, now I can't remember the name of the part, but driving along, hitting a bump, the mesh just ahead of my catalytic converter tore, and so the entire exhaust was laying on the ground, and I couldn't complete the route. Had to have somebody come bail me out. Meanwhile, it was a thunderstorm, and I had to borrow wire from a farmer just outside of where my car broke down, and spent that thunderstorm squeezed up under my car, trying to use that wire to tie up my exhaust system so I could make it back into town, into cell phone range, so that I could have somebody come tow the vehicle and fix it for me. I've learned more about auto mechanic stuff than I have delivering the mail, as I've said in previous episodes. So it's been frustrating when you, on the same vehicle, you have to go through and replace the struts more than once, replace the axles more than once, replace the battery more than once, replace the alternator more than once. Spark plugs, tie rods, ball joints, all that and so much more. But I mean, I'm slowly ramping up in the issues I've had to deal with the post office stories. I mean, anybody that plants flowers around their mailbox is just a jackass. I know they're trying to make it look cute, but if you plant tiger lilies around your mailbox, come July, August, I'm not going to like you very much because the wasp nest that develops in your mailbox is enough to make me look like somebody that had a failed Botox procedure. And I'm not interested in that. I'm more than happy to deliver anything that's supposed to be coming to you, but you got to meet me halfway and make sure that I'm not going to fucking regret giving you your credit card offer, you son of a bitch. Just saying. But, see, now we're still ramping up. I even had one moment where somebody was too much of a, at least self-described upper-class citizen to plow their driveway despite the fact that they're my turnaround on a route. As a result, I got stuck in their driveway, and trying to get out of the driveway, I got stuck in the ditch. And due to the nature of the post office, I had to have a tow truck come and pull me out 10 feet to regain control of the vehicle. That 10 feet cost me $120. The post office doesn't pay that bill. I do. So everything that I did that day to earn my pay went right back into that tow truck fee and then some. The resident in question, where I was trying to deliver mail, never so much as apologized. In fact, they joked about the fact that I got stuck, even though it was because they didn't bother plowing their fucking driveway after a snowstorm. So between the mechanic repairs, the stories I've told you so far, the ever-changing conditions due to the coronavirus and politicizing of the United States Postal Service, the next person that tells me, well, you just drive around all day, might get a Patrick Swayze Roadhouse throat kill. Just saying. A roundhouse kick, Chuck Norris style. Because out of all the jobs I've worked, I've never had to work so hard for a job just to be able to get to the job. I've found myself stuck in many situations in the snow where I've had to dig myself out. I've been lucky enough to have plow trucks come through and throw some sand down for me so that I could get out of a hairy situation. I've even had people plowing their driveways pull out in front of me, causing me to go straight to the ditch. It was either hit them or take the ditch, and the ditch had less people in it. Fewer people, if you want to be grammatically correct, I guess. But the one story that'll be very hard for me to forget is the time that I had either a head cold or the flu. It was very hard to tell. In the middle of blizzard conditions, and I got a call that somebody 20 miles out from where I was at the time needed to be rescued because they made a small mistake. You see, they were supposed to go down this really country-ass road and turn up somebody's driveway that goes up a hill to deliver a parcel. And instead, they missed the 4 snowmobile trail signs and drove their Cadillac. Yes, a silver spoon situation. They drove their Cadillac into the fucking woods down a snowmobile trail. Now, I can see somebody initially making that mistake because, they turned about 20 feet too soon and went down the snowmobile trail instead of the driveway. But at some point you realize your mistake and you correct course. Now, this person managed to drive their vehicle 1.5 miles down a snowmobile trail. And the only reason that they stopped is because their tires sank in the snow. They didn't stop because they realized their mistake. They stopped because they couldn't fucking go anywhere anymore. So me, hacking up a lung, blowing my nose to the point that I thought I'd look like Michael Jackson in between surgeries, I had to drive my front-wheel drive minivan through blizzard conditions 20 miles away to then find the spot on the road where this mail carrier decided to turn off onto a snowmobile trail. Now, I was never a Boy Scout, but I like to think of myself as a prepared individual, carried a tarp in my minivan. So, I had to jog my fat ass 1.5 miles into the woods down a snowmobile trail and use my tarp as a fucking sled to haul the mail and the parcels back to my vehicle so that I could finish delivering all of the mail and parcels. I lost a sandal while talking, but I found it. So, sick as a dog, 3 miles of jogging round trip, the 1.5 miles on the return run, hauling all the parcels and mail that still needed to be delivered, despite the fact that this person wasn't even a quarter of the way through the mail route. And due to the postmaster's word, this person was not able to finish the mail route. They were done for the day. So yeah, I acted as a rescue operator, a sled dog, and a mail carrier, all in one day while being sick as a dog during blizzard conditions. We ended up getting 3 feet of snow in a 24-hour period. This is one more fun story from the past. But that was supposed to be my grand story. The biggest one. But I did forget about when I was using a 2006 Taurus to deliver the mail in another blizzard condition. And by this point in my career with the post office, my vehicle had the floorboards just completely rotted out. I didn't know how bad it had gotten because the carpet above was still intact. But 7 miles into an 84-mile mail route, I found that the slushy snow from the road was coming up through the floorboards and building up under the carpet. I did what I could to keep moving forward, but despite my best efforts on both the driver's side and passenger side of the vehicle, the carpet in the floorboards ended up getting a mound of snow 18 inches high to the point where I couldn't physically use the brake or gas pedals anymore. So, I had to be rescued. Despite the fact that I was a part-time mail carrier, lucky enough to serve a 7.5-hour route, I made it 3 hours into the route and had to be rescued, which resulted in me getting no pay because at the time, I didn't have any PTO or paid time off. So, it was a very frustrating situation. I mean, I've got more stories. Birds flying into the car, killing themselves on the opposite side window from where you sit, or flying in and shitting all over your car as they frantically try to escape. I've got struts breaking on me in the middle of a route. And I even had one time where I had the right-hand drive pedals installed on the passenger side of the vehicle and doing 60 miles an hour down a county highway, had the braided cable for the brake pedal disconnect, having me go another mile down the road before I could adequately stop, get out, and luckily was smart enough to have kept my tools in the back of the vehicle so that I could fix the situation and finish the route. All this and so much more. These are the types of things that you have to put up with as a mail carrier. There are days where I wouldn't wish this job on my most bitter enemies. But in looking back at all the jobs that I've worked, fast food is the most underpaid, underappreciated. And with the post office, it's the most overlooked. And so it's bittersweet seeing my job being politicized in the news But regardless of what happens, until they tell me I can't anymore, I'm going to keep showing up to do my job, getting those medications to my veterans, getting those ballots to the village clerk, getting your Amazon to you. And for the love of God, if you can't say thank you, don't say anything at all. Because my job is a hell of a lot more than just driving around all day. I'm a public servant of the local community, and all I ask is that you share a semblance of the same respect that I bestow upon you. It doesn't mean I'm looking for bribes around Christmas. It's just right now we're in a time where those who already were capable of compassion are being far more compassionate and empathetic, and those who were already assholes are kind of taken to the streets with their megaphone of assholery. So the next time you get a parcel or a piece of first-class mail from your mail carrier, just say thank you and go along. If you feel the need to complain about your carrier, I really hope it's justified, because otherwise your life is just boring enough that the only thing you have to complain about is the mail. But I assure you that I, myself, and many of my colleagues are busting their tails right now to fulfill the obligations and duties we have of getting your mail to you, as well as your parcels, as well as your Amazon, on fucking time. And so I guess if you don't have anything nice to say to your mail carrier, unless it's justifiably concerning enough to file a complaint, don't say anything at all. Say thank you and move on with your day. And I hope someday that either my dreams are answered or I'm able to make a career out of the post office. But right now it's really unnerving seeing the politicization of the Postal Service, as well as the number of assholes that make the job that much more frustrating than it needs to be. And I'd like to say on this episode, I kind of kept it coherent. The way I see it, the Postal Service is a service. When people go ahead and say there needs to be massive overhaul with the Postal Service because they've been losing billions of dollars every year, take a look at the military. When was the last time you said, well, look at the military. We have lost so many billions of dollars a year on it. No, we see the military as a service. It's a public good. In fact, the Postal Service has been around longer than the U.S. Army. So for those of you with traditional conservative values, why do you want to buck tradition? Why? I understand pursuing business, but don't be a hypocrite. There's 630-some thousand postal employees that really don't need to lose their job amidst a pandemic that has caused massive economic disrupt. We're just trying to do our jobs, folks. And until next time, which I should hopefully have a good story to tell, a positive story, because tomorrow is the first day, the maiden voyage of my new vehicle, which completely disrupts the entire way I used to deliver mail. But I'm still going to go out and do it because I owe it to the people of my community. We got some work to do. And y'all have a good one. Keep your heads held high.